Have you ever felt like you hit a plateau in your playing? Like no matter what you do, you just can't seem to break through to that next level? Well, listen, I know how that feels. In fact, I felt the same at one point. I knew all the chords, I knew all the scales, and even though I practiced day in and day out, it still felt like something was missing. You know, the music that I heard in my head just wasn't coming through my fingers. And then thankfully music theory entered the scene and it changed everything. Now suddenly my brain understood why everything worked the way that it did, and that meant that each chord and each note I played was able to make way more impact. Now today I'm going to go ahead and unpack the power of music theory specifically for worship guitar players, so stick with me because this just might be that missing link that you've been searching for. So why do worship guitarists need music theory? Well, in short, music theory brings with it a foundational understanding to literally everything that we do on the guitar. Well, there's a lot that we can achieve by simply trusting our ears and our instincts and our muscle memory, truly understanding the mechanics of music, the theory behind it. That'll bring a whole new level of insight and understanding to your playing. A level where you'll finally understand the why behind each chord and behind each note, and that's a total game changer. I mean, just think about it. Once you get the why behind everything, then you have the freedom to experiment, to tweak, and to truly be creative without limits. Now, music theory also helps you to predict where progressions are going. So maybe you've ever been in a situation where your worship leader suddenly felt inspired to try something new or added a new song to the set list with little to no notice. Well, with a solid grasp of music theory, especially chord progressions, you can just effortlessly flow with that because you'll be predicting and anticipating the chord changes like you've been playing that song forever. And when it comes time to add lead lines and fills, you'll be able to do that on the fly too. So with all that, as you can imagine, it brings a whole new level of creative freedom. And here's the thing, once you've nailed the basics, which is understanding why things work the way they do on the guitar, and once you can get to a point where you can predict what's coming, that's when you start to truly unlock your creative potential. Now, music at its core simply boils down to three elements. You have rhythm, harmony, and melody. And each one of these elements have their respective theory components. So let's go ahead and dive into each one of these elements, starting with rhythm. Now, rhythm is often considered to be the heartbeat of music. It's really essential for setting the pace and the feel of a song, and a solid rhythmic foundation ensures that the notes and the chords that you're playing will have the right impact and the right feel. So let's look at a couple of theory elements as it relates to rhythm. Well, firstly, we have time signatures. Now, just as your heart has a consistent beat, every worship song, or any song for that matter, has a time signature. And the time signature will determine both the number of beats in a measure as well as the types of beats that gets the notes. Now, common time signatures in worship will include 4/4 and 3/4 and 6/8. These are common time signatures, and like I just mentioned, they'll tell you exactly how many beats you have in a bar and then what types of notes gets the beat. So in a 4/4 time signature, that simply means that there are 4 beats in a measure and that the quarter notes will get all of the beats. On the other hand, a 6/8 time signature, that means that you have 6 beats in a measure and the 8th note will be getting the beat. Now, next up we have note values. These simply represent how long a note should ring out or should be held. Now, from whole notes that last a whole bar or to 16th notes, we have 16 subdivisions within a bar. Understanding all these different note values will help you to sync in with the drums and really maintain the song's flow. And then we have syncopation. This is where you emphasize the offbeats, and it can add a touch of unpredictability and some rhythmic interest to your playing. As a worship guitarist, you need to be able to experiment with different strumming patterns and different rhythms, but always prioritizing serving the song and that moment of worship. And when you learn how to read these rhythms, you'll be able to pick up new rhythms much faster because you're not only hearing it, but you can actually see it on the paper. So that covers the theory side of rhythm. Our second element is harmony. Now, harmony adds some depth and emotion to a song. You know, when you have multiple notes that are played together, they're going to form chords, and in those chords, when they are played together in a sequence, that's going to form a chord progression. That's the foundational aspect of any song. So you've got to start by learning the basics of the chords and chord voicing so that you can tell apart major chords from minor chords and diminished chords and augmented chords. But once you have these basics down, you also want to explore more complex chords like sevenths and ninths and sus chords and all these additional kind of voicings that you can play for richer soundscapes. So that means you are not just playing chords for the sake of chords and shapes that you actually just learned from someone else. You can understand why a major seventh is a major seventh and why a minor seventh is a minor seventh. These different levels of understanding helps you to not only know what's going on inside the chord, but that's also going to play a role when you have to start playing lead and melodies over those chords. Now, once you start adding all of the chords together one after the other, like I said, you're going to end up with what we call chord progressions, and understanding the common progressions like a 1-4-5 or a 1-4-6-5 or a 4-1-5-6. All these different common progressions, knowing and understanding them, can help you to anticipate song structures and enhance your overall fluidity when it comes to playing worship songs. Now, when you start to experiment with chord inversions and chord voicings, you'll discover how you can introduce some subtle variations to some familiar progressions in worship songs and therefore giving them a fresh feel. Now, our third and final element is melody. Melody is simply the series of notes that we often remember or hum along to from a song. Now, in worship, of course, that's the tune that the lyrics are being sung to and the different hooks and lines and those kind of things as part of the intros and musical sections and interludes or whatever the case may be. So what is required to create these melodies? Well, first up, we have scales and keys. These are the basic building blocks of melodies, and knowing what key a song is in will help you to choose the correct notes and then therefore creating some awesome guitar parts. Next up, we have intervals. Now, an interval is simply the distance between two notes on the guitar, and being able to recognize different intervals can help you in crafting and recognizing melodies a lot faster. Now, just remember, when you're playing a solo or lead lines or just about any melodic type of guitar part on your guitar, your main aim is always going to be to serve the song, and the melody and playing should always enhance the whole worship experience and not distract from it. When you know theory, you'll be able to make better choices to go ahead and achieve that goal. Now, as a worship guitarist, like I just mentioned, your goal isn't just to play the right notes, but to help in creating that atmosphere that's really conducive to worship. And that's really why it's important to dive into music theory so that you can learn the inner workings of music. But at the end of the day, it's important to keep the heart of worship at the center of your playing. Now, to truly elevate your melodic playing, it's essential to go beyond just memorizing scale patterns, and here's why. You know, the notes of the scale, while they're going to remain constant, it'll be the same 7 notes, the context and the emotional impact, that's going to shift dramatically with every chord change. So let's take the F sharp in the key of G. If I play that over a D chord, then it's a nice major third. But if I play that same note over a C chord, then it's still an F sharp, but it's now become a sharp 11, which is going to demand a different approach as to how you use that note. Now, when you just blindly play a scale without considering all these shifting contexts like I've just shown you, it can lead to some melodic missteps, which in turn gives your confidence a big knock. However, with a solid grasp on the chord tones, understanding why they work, and all the rest of it, you'll be able to easily navigate all of these shifts and therefore crafting melodies that are both intriguing and emotive. So by understanding how to introduce both tension and then also to resolve that tension over these ever-evolving contexts that we call chord changes, you don't just play the guitar, you're able to start telling some compelling musical stories. And guess what? Learning the theory behind all of this is the quickest way to get this nailed. So with that said, let's go ahead and look at some practical steps that you can use to incorporate theory into your daily practice. First up, we have active listening. While studying, one of my teachers told me that you don't get paid to play fast, you get paid to listen fast. Now, he was referring to recording sessions where you were being booked as a session player, and the guitarists that got all the sessions, they weren't the shredders, but instead they were the guys who could listen to a song and quickly come up with a cool part that they could then record in the studio. Now, while the old way of doing sessions in big recording studios, that might be a thing of the past, listening will never go out of style. It's all about listening to what's going on around you and responding to that. And then, of course, as worship guitarists, in addition to listening with our ears, we also need to be attentive to the leading of the Spirit during these key moments of worship and be able to respond to those things. Next up, we have experimentation, and Einstein said that imagination is more important than knowledge. Now, music theory isn't just about cramming in all the facts and figures into your head. Instead, it's about imagining, and it's about experimenting, and it's about exploring. Music theory should be your map, but at the end of the day, your creativity should chart the journey. Now, just remember that Rome wasn't built in a day, and that it might take some time to get all these concepts down. But if you keep at it and dedicate time to delve into these inner workings of music and music theory, it will totally transform your worship guitar skills and make a meaningful impact in the lives of your congregation. Now, something else will make a meaningful impact in your playing is getting your guitar tone sorted. So go ahead and check out this video called Unleashing Your Perfect Worship Guitar Tone. We'll dive deep into the essence of sound, along with how to master your gear and how to elevate your worship guitar skills and your worship guitar tone. So I'll see you there in just a minute.